Eddie Alvarez is leaving Bellator for the UFC. I'm Jim Basketball with the latest ESPN headlines. UFC President Dana White announced the news on Twitter on Tuesday that Alvarez will fight Donald Cerrone as a co-main event at UFC 178. And joining us on the phone is Brett Okamoto, ESPN MMA columnist. Brett, this was one of the better fighters at Bellator, and I know that UFC had been discussing the possibility of having Alvarez come on board dating back to 2012. But why did Bellator let one of their better fighters out of his contract?
Well, you got to remember that Bellator recently came under a new head. Former Strikeforce CEO Scott Coker, he took that position from the former executive Bjorn Rebney in June, and so there's sort of a different feel over there in Bellator. And basically, what it came down to is Eddie Alvarez did not have a long-term future fighting for Bellator promotion. He had been sort of a face for that promotion since it started in 2009. He had fought 10 times for them, but he had had a falling out with Bjorn Rebney. He had wanted to fight for the UFC. He tried to sign a contract with the UFC in 2012, but Bellator prevented him from doing that for legal reasons, so he had to continue to compete in Bellator up until now. And with Scott Coker taking over the reins, he said, listen, if you do not have a long-term future, you don't want to be here, we're going to go ahead and let you go. And that's what they did. And it sure didn't take long for Eddie Alvarez to move over to the UFC, something he's waited for a long time to do.
So, Brett, tell me why this is a coup for the UFC.
Well, it's a big plus for the UFC to pull Eddie Alvarez. He's a guy who they've had interest in as well. It's not just Eddie Alvarez wanting to fight for the UFC. That promotion has wanted to get him into the octagon, and he takes on a real big fight right away. Eddie Alvarez will be fighting Donald Cerrone at UFC 178 in Las Vegas on September 27th. That is a really big fight. Donald Cerrone is a guy who's had a lot of consistency in the UFC. Doesn't always get it done in the real big fights that could possibly get him into title contention, but this is one of those fights. He was already originally scheduled to be on that card against Bobby Green. Green bows out. Alvarez comes in. It's a much bigger fight. It adds to the card, and it's a big signing for the UFC.
What does this mean for Eddie Alvarez from a career standpoint, making the transition from Bellator to UFC?
Well, I think for Eddie, it's about wanting to challenge himself, and Bellator is getting there. And certainly, Scott Coker, one of the big things that he wants to do as president of that promotion is to build its roster, to get more talent, to create deeper divisions. And I believe that that's something he can do. He's always had a good eye for talent. But right now, Bellator does not have the stable of fighters that the UFC has. The UFC just has more quality guys for Eddie Alvarez to come over at 155 pounds and to challenge himself. And he's 30 years old. This is a challenge that he's wanted. He felt like his prime years were slipping away. Now he moves over to the UFC at 30 years of age. He's got plenty of time still left in the sport. He wants to challenge himself. He wants to obviously get paid well, get the exposure of the UFC. He gets all that now with this deal.
If you want to fight the best, the UFC is where you need to be. It's Brett Okamoto. He covers MMA for ESPN.com. Brett, we appreciate the insight.
Thanks, Jim.
Again, it's Eddie Alvarez. He's leaving Bellator for the UFC. He will be a co-main event at UFC 178 against Donald Cerrone. You can read more about this story right here on ESPN.com. With the latest ESPN headlines, I'm Jim Basketball.